I feel like I should start off this review with an apology. I have made many mistakes in my life, especially way back when I started this channel, and I have done plenty of things that I absolutely should not have done. I've said plenty of things that I shouldn't have said, like saying that Camp Lazlo is a good show.
Attention campers, it's time for Camp Lazlo.
Way back in the day, I had this habit of going off memories when I was talking about a show. You know, I remember liking this show or that show when I was a kid growing up. And I said that I liked the show and it was good, even though the last time I had seen that show was a decade ago. It led me to saying certain things about certain shows that don't really make much sense. I think the most infamous one is during the Ball of Revenge review when I mentioned Ben 10, making people think that I hated it. Or during the original top 20 best opening themes when I mentioned Cat Dog, and that made people think that I actually liked that show. I have talked about Camp Lazlo before, and I have talked about it positively. Most notably when I used it to bash Camp Coral in a video that I no longer really agree with. I've actually seen a great deal of Camp Lazlo as of recent, so let me be as clear as I can. I loathe Camp Lazlo. I think the show is not just bad, but plain awful. At Camp Lazlo's absolute best, it is a pale imitation of SpongeBob. It has the same basic setup, with the happy-go-lucky idiot and his friends making things miserable for the grumps that surround him. However, Camp Lazlo lacks any sort of wit or charm, and more often than not, the episodes are tedious. I just don't think it's a very well-constructed or thought-out show. For example, one thing that I complained about before is shows that have twins that act exactly the same. One character design, one character archetype, there's no difference between the two. On some level, that might be funny if it wasn't the most overdone thing in the entire world, but because it is done in like every show ever, it comes across as pointless. Why do you have two characters if you don't have two characters, you know? Well, Camp Lazlo actually has this character type with Chip and Skip. It also has this character type with Dave and Ping Pong. And it has this type again with the four Lemming brothers. All three sets of these duplicates act exactly the same as each other. And you can find this type of creativity in everything that is Camp Lazlo. Let's see here. The more down-to-earth guy who is the nicer, smarter assistant of the asshole that's in charge. Who does that make you think of? Waylon Smithers? Who's that? No, we're talking about Slinkman the Slug, the most original character of all time. TV Trope says that he's literally an XP, but that's not how XPs work. He is a ripoff of Waylon Smithers. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not saying that Camp Lazlo is a full-on SpongeBob ripoff. SpongeBob takes place underwater. Camp Lazlo is not funny. Totally different shows. Then again, it's not who did it first, it's who did it best. Camp Lazlo did have this creative idea of having a smart character who rarely says anything. Phineas and Ferb used that trope correctly 2 years later. Getting back down to earth here, maybe Camp Lazlo was a good show once upon a time. After all, it was squeezed right in the middle of Cartoon Network going more live action, and putting crap on the network like Cram Twins, My Gym Partner's a Monkey, Squirrel Boy. Any show is going to look good next to them. But as time goes on and I'm getting back into Camp Lazlo, it feels right at home in this era. Maybe you could just say that Camp Lazlo aged poorly. Because it has aged poorly.
Let's get going! I have been looking forward to this trip for weeks. My retainer is gone! Oh, no!
I have no idea why Apu was the source of the controversy. This is the worst Indian accent I've ever heard by someone who is not Indian. I'm sorry to come right out of the gate swinging on this one, but in my many hot takes that I've discovered in going through Cartoon Network's oeuvre for CN Real, the two opinions that I get questions over and over again is Time Squad, because why, and Camp Lazlo, because I have said that it was good in the past. I'll get deeper into the show's problems in quarter 4, but as for now, I think this one gets a preview, as we go over and give the biggest example of how crap the show can actually be. Camp Lazlo has two flavors, Flavorless and Meat Man. It does occasionally have those more off-the-wall ideas to package into its episodes. You know, like SpongeBob. These tend to be the only times the show isn't in some kind of dead zone. They're also the worst episodes of the show. The most infamous of these episodes has to be the ending, where it's revealed that Scoutmaster Lumpus was an escapee from an insane asylum and had kidnapped the actual Scoutmaster. It's less funny than it sounds, especially because many episodes of the show were built around actually caring about who this guy was. All in all, it just comes across as a slap in the face. But I think the best episode to showcase what kind of show Camp Lazlo can be is the episode Hold It Lazlo. This episode follows a rather common plot type, or it used to be, because the road less traveled is for posers. This is a potty emergency episode. You've probably seen this one every now and again. A character has to use the bathroom really, really badly, but for this reason or that reason, they just can't seem to find one. Animaniacs has probably the best example of this, doing it 14 years before Lazlo. But it does have some longevity, as Chowder was doing it at exactly the same time and much, much better. I'm being a little bit harsh here. Common plot types, that's just media. You know, if I'm going off on the potty emergency episode, wait till you hear how many episodes have tried cloning episodes, or body swaps, or growing or shrinking episodes. Nothing new under the sun after all. It's all about how well you can do it. So, let's see how well that Camp Lazlo does this. This episode starts with the lemonade drinking contest. Let me ask you a riddle for the ages. Can Squidward ever win something against SpongeBob? No. What makes you think that Edward from Camp Lazlo ever had a chance?
Let's see how well you handle lemonade from concentrate.
He is the perpetual loser. And for him to win every now and again against our main character, that would be unpredictable and thus not welcome in the show. Edward takes his lemonade without sugar, and we see here one of the main problems of the show overall. SpongeBob gets criticized for its over-the-top bases and its over-reliance on them, and that is certainly a problem with Neo SpongeBob. Camp Lazlo has the opposite problem though. It's too restrained too often, making it look low-budget, like it's trying to fit in with the low-budget Flash cartoons of the time. And it wasn't a technology problem either. Chowder had great facial expressions. Flapjack also got really out there, and SpongeBob was SpongeBob. And if you don't believe me about the expressions, see what you think about some of these. This is like legitimately the best the show has to offer. It's not the worst in the world to be fair, but it's like mediocre, like white bread with no butter mediocre. Although we do get, this one. That's just great.
It's all that swishing noise. It's obnoxious.
He said it, not me. Anyway, cause Lazlo won the contest, now he has to pee. A whole lot.
Lazlo, could you stand a little more like a champion?
I've seen enough of the show to know that the answer is no. Lazlo's only talent is being a loser without dignity. So anyway, Lazlo's first inclination is to rush to the camp bathroom, where we find that the line is super long. I'm just gonna show you this picture here, and see if you can see why the plot doesn't make sense with this premise. The woods are fucking everywhere. Like, tell me you've never been camping before without telling me that you've never been camping before. Tents don't have indoor plumbing. I don't know if you should criticize an episode like this for, plot holes, but I do expect you to plug up easy solutions. Make it funny at least if you don't.
We could just go to our house, Eddie.
What? And ruin the plot?
Then you'll never expect what happens in an episode about urine. It gets kinda gross. Lazlo pees so much the lake rises. And when a fish played by Edward scolds him,
I don't swim in your toilet, so please don't whiz in my home.
Lazlo, absorbs it back in. Like a sponge. Ah, cool, you got the same musical sting pack that SpongeBob has. I love that one! Finally, Lazlo decides to try and pee on the only tree that looks like it's being used for something else. But Edward stops him. I know that Edward doesn't really care, but why would Lazlo care what Edward thinks? Lazlo is usually so in his own little world that being criticized is the last thing that he tends to care about, especially as we'll see later in the episode. Also, fun fact, Lazlo is a spider monkey. Spider monkeys are not afraid to pee in the woods. I know this for a fact because there was a cartoon playing at the same time as this one, starring a spider monkey, who is clearly willing to pee in the woods. Edward disguised himself as the fish, and Lazlo didn't see him put up the out of order sign. But every other time that Lazlo is trying to pee, Edward is there. You know, the grump who has a grudge that Lazlo knows is a grump who holds a grudge. The fact that Lazlo doesn't put two and two together makes him frustrating in a Season 6 SpongeBob kind of way. Have I said SpongeBob enough in this review yet? I'm just saying that because that is something that I'd rather be watching. So anyway, Lazlo pees for 3 days. Please stop trying to put the image of a monkey's dick in my brain. Alright, time to level with you guys. I've been harsh so far. Maybe too harsh. You're probably watching all of this and scratching your head. Maybe not, but you're probably going this is it. This is what's gotten a bee in your bonnet today. I mean, yeah, it's obviously not great, but the mid-2000s was filled with a ton of not great stuff. Robot Boy, Buzz on Maggie, Invisible Network of Kids, and so on. I mean, Coconut Fred was a way worse, way more blatant, not SpongeBob fail comedy. The question must be asked, why the hell are we even talking about this? Because this episode is about to get very, very, very not good. So Edward gives Lazlo a diaper. Because Edward says that it's not a diaper, Lazlo buys into his lie and puts it on. Can I ask, did anyone anywhere ever like protagonists this stupid? And if you did, please tell me why. What exactly do you get out of a character who is so blind to reality that they should have earned their Darwin Award decades ago? Darwin. That's another monkey that I'd rather be watching right now. Now, not baby characters wearing diapers isn't an uncommon idea either. This is the one time that Camp Lazlo beat SpongeBob to the punch, but there's also Rugrats, Danny Phantom, Fairly Odd Parents. It even dates as far back as the Flintstones, if you could believe it. But I have to say, we are in a post-DeviantArt world, and people know a lot more than they used to, for better or worse. And whenever there's something like this does come up in a cartoon, you get the meme. I've fallen into that trap myself with the whole Squid Baby thing. So let's try to not overreact here and read into implications that simply may or may not be there. Like I said, it is a common comedy routine. All that happens in this episode is that Lazlo gets tricked into wearing a diaper. Then everyone starts laughing at him because Edward has the explicit intent to humiliate Lazlo. However, Lazlo convinces everyone that wearing diapers is cool. And so in the next scene, all of the campers are wearing diapers, with a nice farting sound effect or two.
What's going on?
And then this happens.
Oh, Lazlo, can you save my seat while I go to the bathroom?
Sure, Raj.
Okay, I'm done.
And when Raj pisses in the diaper, everyone calls it cool, and Raj looks very, very pleased with himself. Then the other campers start pissing themselves.
I forgot I wasn't wearing tinkle togs.
Okay, look, I'm probably one of the people least in the know about this kind of stuff in general. So you tell me how innocent you can read any of this. I'm not going to assume any intent among anyone behind whatever the fuck any of this is, because I don't know. None of us know. I want to make that clear. However, I'm not going to deny the effect here. You see exactly what this looks like. You cannot argue that this doesn't look like what it looks like. This episode is making totally spies blush and go, dude, have some fucking shame. And then finally, peer pressure gets to Edward to finally put on a diaper. Then his brothers come in.
Can you bring any more shame to our family?
I can't believe we're related.
So in conclusion, I hate Camp Lazlo. This is why. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk. Please stop asking me. I hope you all have a good day. I am going to stare in a mirror for a good 2 hours and wondering how my life got this out of whack. I should not have said whack in this review.